clear. I'm not saying you shouldn't do anything. You can raise your voice, no problem. You can use the pen, no problem. You can peacefully demonstrate, no problem. You can use recourse to the law. You can ask your government to advocate on your behalf. You can have the High Court, Supreme Court, which has already happened, issue stay orders on these websites. All of that is fine. That is fine. But that is what we call radd amal. That is ilzami jawab, that we call in the madrasa. It's not tahqiqi jawab. It's not the real answer. That's a quick fix. That's the quick defensive action. That's not the real solution. You should do the quick defensive action in those ways that I just told you. That's it. There's no more detail to what you can do. But the real solution is us. Every time you do a sin, you're drawing a cartoon. Why don't we start viewing our sins as cartoons? Our badnazris as cartoons, our badgumanis as cartoons, our lies and our tongue as cartoons. And like I said to you, that's going to hurt the Prophet much more. What do you think is going to hurt him on the Day of Judgment? That he sees some unbelievers who, bichara, they themselves didn't know anything about Islam except what they saw on CNN, that they draw some cartoon about him? Or is he going to be sad when he sees somebody who was supposed to be from his ummah, somebody from Ummah al-Mustafa, someone who's done so many sins? What's going to hurt him more if you're worried about what hurts him? And the most irony of it is those same young men who always say, nahi, zahiri sunnat ki koi zarurat nahi hai. Aap log khamakha, Maulvi, sab zahir par zor dalte hai. These same young men are all in jazbat over a zahiri cartoon. Cartoon bika wo zahir ka ek shakal hai na. If the zahir appearance of the Prophet ﷺ was really so valued to you that you don't want somebody writing a cartoon, drawing a cartoon on the zahir appearance, so where's your zahir sunnah? Normally I don't tell you to do the zahir sunnah, we make you think of it yourself. But ye to ajeeb irony hai. जब खुद अमल पढ़ा जाए तो कहते हैं कि ये तो बस ज़ाहिरी सुन्नत है, असल चीज़ तो अंदर से अच्छा मुसलमान बनना है, और कार्टून भी तो ज़ाहिरी चीज़ है ना. How about if somebody was to draw a cartoon of the Prophet ﷺ clean shaven and wearing a three-piece suit? Would that be tawheen? And if that's tawheen, then why aren't we tawheen? जज्बात से क्या आपने काम लेना है? How about if somebody was to draw the Prophet ﷺ clean shaving, wearing t-shirt and baggy jeans? Or with a little French goatee? Is that tawheen or is that not tawheen? If that's tawheen, then why aren't you tawheen? This is actually nifaq. 90% of the people who are getting upset about the cartoons is actually nifaq. It's not even ikhlas on their part. Why can't they draw? Why can't a Danish man draw a cartoon like that when you can live your life like that? Should have the right. He'll say, मैंने तो क्या किया है? खुद उनको देखो कितनी शक्ल सूरतें लेकर फिरते हैं, अपने आप को मुसलमान कह रहे हैं, तो मैंने तो एक और शक्ल सूरतें लग दी. क्या फर्क पड़ता है? And this is just history repeating itself. Sayyidina Rasulullah said in a hadith that the deen will begin as a stranger, as unwanted, as unfamiliar. And towards the end of time it will return, ghuraba, it will return as a stranger, as unwanted, as unfamiliar. That's the real problem. Is the real sunnah has become a stranger. And that's why anybody can write and draw anything they want. I'm surprised it hasn't happened earlier. I don't know what took them to 2010 to come up with this idea. In fact, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, so many people used to do tawheen of him in his own lifetime from non-Muslims, right? The rules pertaining to Muslims are different than the rules pertaining to non-Muslims. There's no shortage of non-Muslims. Attack, ridicule, mock, hurt the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if you look at his life, none of that meant anything to him. It didn't make him sad or despair or depressed in any way. And the only thing that made him sad is they weren't accepting Iman. That made him sad. The actual mocking and ridiculing had no effect on his heart. But the fact that they weren't accepting Iman, his own Quraysh, his own Ahle Makkah, Ahle Taif, Ahle Arab, were not accepting Iman, that hurt him. That hurt him. You never even cared about Danish people. When did you shed a tear over the fact that these Danish people aren't Muslim? You never shed a tear over that. That's what the Prophet used to shed tears over. Wo bhi jazbaat, the soft, sensitive, some of the girls also, they like to cry over this. You can't cry over these cartoons any more than you can just wajib al-qatl par shur jana galat hai. At the same time, you're not supposed to be crying over these cartoons. If you weren't to cry over them, you should be crying over them because they don't have Iman. You should be crying over them because you failed to send them the message of Islam. That's something to cry over the Danish people. Don't sit and cry over cartoons. And with the Prophet when he did shed tears, it was over the unbelievers not accepting Islam. It wasn't shedding tears over what they were doing to him or saying about him that they called him a magician. This is in Quran. That they called him a magician, a soothsayer, a poet, a fancy speaker. None of that stuff made him shed tears. Asma, we really lost and betrayed the sunnah of the Prophet ourselves. Both the inner and the outer sunnah. We don't have that adab and akhlaq. You see it everywhere. You'll be amazed. Now let me tell you about your older generation. People in your, not your fathers necessarily, but of your father's generation. The amount of lying, deception, Allahu Akbar, that I've witnessed in people in the age group of 40 to 60 in the elite class of Pakistan. Allahu Akbar kabira. Tawbah. Kehne ko they're educated. Kehne ko they're highly educated. And their adab and akhlaq is highly barbaric. Not all of them, I'm not even saying most of them. I'm not even saying most of them necessarily. But there's a large number of them. And because they failed to learn from the sunnah, adab and akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ, that's the failure. They don't even realize what the failure is. People don't even diagnose the illness properly. That's how you should view every moral failure, every failure of character. It's not a failure of morality, it's a failure of that person to follow the sunnah. It's a failure to take guidance from the sunnah. Whether it's in terms of family relations, personal relations, office relations, job relations, business relations, government relations. All of these are glaring failures. You shouldn't think that our country is crippled because of bribery and corruption and leave it at that. You should think that our country is crippled because of bribery, corruption, cronyism, all of that due to a failure to follow the sunnah and purge themselves of these desires of their nafs. That's the failure. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahu Akbar, khuluqun azim. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahul Azim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who his own sifat is Al-Azim, he is calling the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that you are on khuluqun azim, that you